Hey Brad, how much AI did you cover in history at school?
None. It wasn't really a thing when I was in school. Maybe just like Alan Turing as part of World War Two. Did you?
Nah, I mean, I think it's overlooked because it hasn't decapitated two of his wives yet.
So the birth of AI was the same as the birth of the computer, but the fundamental statistics that underpin AI and machine learning have been around for hundreds of years. The least squares methods, used to plot the location of the sun and the stars, was proposed by Gauss in the classical era.
He's the guy who invented calculus, right?
Yeah.
But when we think about AI, we don't really think about these classical era physicists. We think about iRobot, Terminator, crazy robots taking over the world. But this is actually where it all started, using maths to solve complex problems with machines.
Yeah, it's crazy how complex problems 400 years ago are almost trivial now. So let's just start over with the father of computing and AI, Alan Turing. Have you seen The Imitation Game?
Yeah, the one about them cracking the Enigma code.
Yeah, exactly. So Turing was a British mathematician and codebreaker. He and his team were tasked by the government to come up with a way to break the infamous Enigma code used by the Nazi soldiers during World War Two.
The code was really complex, right?
Yeah, and every day a new key was needed to break that code. So they created a machine that could intercept the codes and break them without any human interaction. And I mean, like it or not, this was the first example of machine learning.
The modern breakthroughs in AI have come from a group of models based on the structure of artificial neural networks, first proposed by Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitt in 1943. These attempt to mimic how the human brain makes decisions. But there was actually very little progress with neural networks due to the limited computing power in the 50s and 60s.
However, in 1951, researcher John McCarthy coined the term artificial intelligence, and with that, he created the Lisp programming language.
This is where the buzzword was born.
Yeah, 60 years later, and it's still popping up my LinkedIn profile. But Lisp was created as a practical mathematical notation for computers and was very influential in the early days of AI machine learning. In 1964, the first natural language processing program was written in Lisp and was called ELIZA.
There's been a lot of progression in NLP since then, though.
Yeah, so this was pretty basic by modern standards, but when you think all of this was done with a computer that has only the fraction of the power of a modern smartphone.
That definitely puts it into perspective. So, what happened with those neural networks?
In the 70s, 1975, renewed interest in neural networks came about with the backpropagation algorithm that made training multi-layer perceptual models, neural networks, more efficient and feasible with newer computers and parallel processing.
So, computers were now fast enough to make these models work?
Not yet. They would work, but they take forever to train. But the backpropagation algorithm is important even in today's models.
So, looking at today's models, since the turn of the millennium, there's been a lot more focus on the structure of neural networks and the rise of a field called deep learning that builds very deep networks capable of solving more and more complex problems.
Yep. In 2015, DeepMind, an artificial intelligence built by London-based researchers and acquired by Google, managed to beat the world champion in the game of Go, an abstract strategy board game which is an order of magnitude more complex than chess. This was a major breakthrough in the field and gathered a lot of media attention.
There's even a Netflix documentary about it called AlphaGo.
Which coincidentally was what they called the model.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's really good if you're interested in the field.
So nowadays, the ability to train algorithms like neural networks is much more accessible because the availability of processing power has increased. Cloud services like AWS, Azure, they let you outsource your computation to massive servers somewhere miles away that you'll never even see.
And with that, it's a brief history of AI. Next, we're going to look at some of the different types of AI in use today, and we hope to see you there. Roll outro.